Hello, hello. Welcome back to my podcast. Delighted to have you back here. Hello to those of you watching on YouTube. So today I wanted to share a little bit of a personal revelation that I had over the last week since I last came and chatted to you. So I have been doing a lot of personal investigative work, shall we say, with regards to money. My mindset around money, how I feel about money. I decided in 2023 that I was going to pull my head firmly out of my ass and get on top of my money mindset. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a dire situation that I'm living in, but I did become aware in 22 that I have a little bit of an unhealthy relationship with money. And what I mean by that is I fear it. I get anxious around money. And I wanted to understand why. So late last year, I started reading a few books around money mindset and I started digging in and I started to uncover some of the layers of stuff that has been created around my money mindset. Now, I'm not going to go into mass detail here because it really isn't relevant. But what I will say is that I thought I knew how I felt about money until I started getting really curious. So last week I had a Zoom call with a lovely lady called Ray Dodd. And I've known Ray for quite a long time now. Ray was in similar circles to me many years ago. We were both working in the birth world. And we hadn't seen each other for quite a long time. And then I started noticing her on Instagram. And she is now a money coach. Now, full disclosure, and I've said this to Ray and I've said this to Shelley, who's my business coach, I'm a bit cagey around the word coach because I have somewhat of a coaching wound. And what I mean by that is, in the past, I've invested in people or persons that are coaches. I've parted with large sums of cash to get the results I desired, which didn't particularly come to fruition. And I have felt somewhat aggrieved by that, shall we say. So I was hesitant to speak with Ray, but I trust Ray. And I know Ray's been in similar circles to me over the last 10 years. So we had a Zoom call last week all around money and digging into my money story. And the reason I'm sharing this with you today is it gave me a whole new level of awareness of myself. And it wasn't around money necessarily. We just started to uncover stuff that had occurred in my lifetime that meant I was playing it small somewhat. So whilst it started as a discussion around money, what it became was a lesson of self-awareness. Because, I mean, every day's a school day, right? So what I'm wanting to share with you today is the revelations that I came to and ask you the same questions of, are you playing it small in your life? Are you shrinking yourself down, albeit unconsciously, from a place of unawareness because of beliefs or behaviours that have been imparted on you by another generation, by potentially somebody that was and is in a position of influence in your life? Now, if you've listened to me talk about beliefs before, you will have heard me say and talk about conditioning and how we become the person we are and how we learn our beliefs, how we learn these behaviours because we weren't born with them. And I will probably say this on every episode that I ever record. We are not born with the beliefs that we move through the world with now. We are shown them, we are taught them, we learn them from people around us. And I wouldn't say it's a fear of standing out from the crowd so much now, because I generally don't have a fear of being seen in a way that I might have done 15 years ago. I don't people please as much as I would have done 15 years ago, but I was playing small. And by playing small I wasn't standing in my full power, or I haven't been standing in my full power. Now, some of this comes back to the beliefs around females, and that females should behave in a certain way. So I put this out on a newsletter yesterday because it's been such a revelation to me, like just understanding how the system subliminally talks to females. So I was born in 75, so I grew up through the late 70s, and then predominantly most of my formative years would have been through the 80s. So the conditioning that I heard, the conditioning that I experienced was somewhat outdated and relevant of that time. I don't think it doesn't exist now. It most certainly still exists now. But I get it from where it came from, and I get it from where that person learnt it from as well. So it was a generational thing. It's still very much out there though. Still very much out there around how females should behave, how females should carry themselves. And I still find that a challenge. I watched Love Island last night. I don't watch Love Island, but it was on last night because one of my sons watches it. And I found myself hearing some of those outdated beliefs that had been very much visible in my early years growing up. Like, oh my goodness, she's barely wearing anything. Why is she not covering herself up a little bit? Like, and these noises of, who does she think she is? You know, we would all have said, like, when I was at school, and women and girls of my generation, and I'm sure it still happens now. I don't know that to be fact because one, I've raised sons, I haven't raised daughters. And two, my children aren't at school anymore. They're all in their 20s. But I remember distinctly being at school, in senior school, and if a girl kind of stood out from the crowd, we would have said things like, oh my God, who does she think she is? Love herself much? You know, those types of things. You know, even females are socially conditioned to judge other women based on their behaviours. So from a young age, you know, my grandfather, who I adored, who's now passed, he used to make comments like, well, I don't like nail varnish on girls. Girls shouldn't wear nail varnish, but if they wear it, they should just wear clear nail varnish because it just looks much prettier. You know, girls that walk around with, or women that walk around with all these colours on their nails, it's just really cheap looking. And, you know, things like that were said all the time. And I didn't adopt that belief. I wear nail polish. I don't give a shit about stuff like that. But those things were being said regularly. Things like, stop showing off. You know, if girls, you know, me and my little sister, we would dance around and put shows on and things like that. Stop showing off. Calm down. Stop being a rosy posy was a term that was said to us. You're being a rosy posy. Stop showing off. And I don't ever recall things like that being said to my brother. Not that he put shows on. But, you know, it was be feminine. Be more ladylike. Dress appropriately, wear your hair in a certain way. Now, I also know that this was said through love. It was said through positive intention. You know, my dad, who I adore, he had two little girls that I think he was quite frightened of the world that they were living in. When I was around 8 or 9, my mum was late for picking me up from school, and I decided I was really big and grown up and I was going to walk home. And we lived around maybe 300 yards, maybe 400 yards from the school. So I thought, you know what, I'll just walk myself home. On that journey, a guy pulled up, opened his car door and told me to get in. And thankfully, in that time frame, we had been taught in school about saying no to strangers. This man was quite insistent. This man actually got hold of a piece of my clothing, and I was able to, well, a person came along and I was able to get away and legged it home and sobbed all my way home, and the police were called, and all of that occurred at a very young age for me. So actually, I understand why my dad wanted me and my sister to almost be invisible. Don't stand out. Don't be seen, because then no harm can come to you. But there are plenty of women walking around with the same sort of conditioning that didn't have that type of experience, but their parents would have said it through a place of love and positive intention. Whether it was received with love and positive intention is a whole different matter. But as I've said in previous episodes, every behaviour is driven by positive intention. So I know why those kinds of comments were passed on to me. And interestingly as well, as we grew up, I did play small. I did make myself as invisible as I possibly could. I didn't deliberately try and stand out from the crowd. I didn't feel like I fit into a crowd, to be honest, growing up. But my sister, and this is how the unconscious mind works, completely ignored all of that conditioning and stood out from the crowd at every given opportunity. She had massive boobs. They were always the cleavage was always on show. She wore really short skirts. Like, she was stunning. She was beautiful. She wore red lipstick. Like, she loved being seen. She loved being heard. She loved to stand out. So she didn't take on that conditioning that I unconsciously decided to take on board. Whether that was because of the experience I'd had, and then that fear crept in for me as well, I don't know, quite possibly. But as I've come into adulthood and as I'm pushing my business forward now, I am noticing that I am holding myself back. Just a small amount now. But I have definitely been playing it small. And I have definitely been hiding a little bit in the shadows. So this was a huge revelation for me last week. Like, I've done a lot of personal development, but this was a massive revelation for me of what areas of my life am I playing small? Am I playing small because of this patriarchal, I hope I've said that right, I can never get that word out right, bollocks that tells women to be a certain way and behave a certain way and fit in and don't stand out. And then there's also that fear of, if I do stand out, how are people going to perceive that? Because again, that, who does she think she is? Oh my God, love herself much? I mean, in sessions with my clients, I say to them sometimes, do you love yourself? And the thought of it, like, they barely like themselves most days. Like, the thought of saying, I love myself, is such a conceited act. Like, love myself? No. I look in the mirror every single day when I'm getting ready, and I search out for all the things that I love about myself. Because you know what? We can look in the mirror and we can find tons of flaws, can't we? Oh, there's the stretch marks. Oh, there's a bit of a flabby belly I've got now. My boobs have sagged a bit. Gosh, look at this, look at that, look at the eye, look at my bags under my eyes, my grey hair. There are a few things, that, potentially I've picked up in the past. Or we can choose. We get to choose. I am going to adjust my gaze here, because actually noticing the things that I perceive as flaws is really unhelpful for me. Really makes me feel crap about myself. So I'm going to start to notice the things about me that I love or like. We can start with the word like if love is too powerful right now. So the message I want to leave with you today, and just for today, what I want you to ponder on, is first and foremost, where are you playing small in your life? And are you doing it to fit in or for somebody else, so that you don't overshadow somebody else, because there's also that element, isn't there? If I become successful, how is that other person in my life going to feel? Are they going to feel they're losing their power? Are they going to feel that they aren't being seen because you're being seen? You may not be consciously aware of that, but I'm sure if you spend some time digging into the unconscious, just through journaling or just through talking it through in your head, you'll get to know the answers to that. So what areas of your life are you playing small? Are you hiding in the shadows, either to keep yourself safe and or to pacify somebody else and not them feel small or insignificant? And also what I want you to do just for today is next time you look at yourself in the mirror, you find one thing that you like/love about yourself. Just start with one thing. And as soon as you start with one, you will set the intention every day. I'm just going to find one thing that I love about myself. And then you'll start to notice more than one thing. And then the next day, maybe another thing. It always starts with one thought. Just for today, I want you to find one thing that you like or love about yourself. And of course, I would love to hear from you how this episode has landed with you, the areas that you're playing small in your life, things that you love. Let me know if you're finding this a real challenge as well. And you can come and do that in our private in our private WhatsApp group. I'm going to put the link to the WhatsApp group in the show notes. There's 16 members in the WhatsApp group so far, and we have some really good discussions about topics that I'm covering on the podcast. So I would love you to come along and join the conversation.